Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast, your encyclopedia for the college basketball season. Busy show today. It is our yearly event where we break down every single March Madness game. We've had a night to sleep it over, kind of think about some of the matchups that are going to take place this upcoming Thursday. We're even going to talk a little bit of first four matchups. So we're going to talk about all of this. Now, before we dive into it, one thing I will say, I'm not going to tell you how to pick your bracket. It's so up for grabs. Anything can happen. I don't know. I'm just going to break down some of the matchups that might favor some teams, might not favor some teams. Some, as you see on this graphic, matchup nightmares. Some teams just, got a rough draw. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, some potential routes to get to the Final Four for some of these teams, maybe some potential upsets along the way. But I'm not going to tell you how to pick this game, how to pick, you see these on here, how to pick Kansas over Arkansas or how to pick Arkansas over Kansas. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to show you some of the potential, good matchups for some teams, tough draws for other teams. Then we are going to talk about the betting lines. We're going to go region by region, game by game. I got the betting lines on here, just added them. The graphics aren't going to be too incredibly pretty, but we're going to talk about those. And then I am going to do the best first round bets, and including first four as well. Just some games that I think, maybe a few too many points, not so many points. We might even talk a little bit about some of the Ken Pom lines that, the Ken Pom lines are kind of what initiate the betting lines. So if there's a big difference in them, we'll talk about that. So I got that pulled up on another screen, but once again, not going to tell you how to pick, just going to kind of go through game by game what we might be seeing take place. Before we dive into it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you're not behind on the college basketball world. We're going to be talking a ton over this course of the NCAA tournament. Make sure that hit those post notifications because we will be going live at some times. We went live yesterday, just an instant reaction to Selection Sunday, answering some questions, discussing some other people's thoughts. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and take a look at it. And then while you're at it, be sure to follow us on social media at Bracket Science. That's with 2 S's on Instagram and TikTok. Go ahead and check that out. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Let's start with just going to pull up real quick for people who want to visualize it. This is just the full bracket. It's got the TV dates. We're going to go region or TV schedule, I guess, not, I guess dates too, but we're going to go region by region, game by game. Let's start in the first four though. So this graphic, just credit to ESPN app. This is the first four games starting on Tuesday. So your opening matchup is St. Francis, Pennsylvania, taking on Alabama State. Nice to see these two teams, get their glory, get on national stage as a standalone game. Alabama State's favored by 3.5. I don't have a side to pick in this one. It's just going to be a game that you basically just watch and enjoy and just feel good for these two schools. The game in the first four, some teams that could, no disrespect to St. Francis or Alabama State. Fairleigh Dickinson did a couple years ago in the first four and beat Purdue, obviously. But some teams that could maybe make some noise and win a game or two in March Madness. 11-seeded North Carolina and San Diego State, the other 11-seed in a first four game at 9:10 p.m. on True TV. North Carolina, many people did not think they deserved to get in. I didn't have them getting in included, but they're in. And quite frankly, they can probably win a couple games in March Madness. They've been playing well as of late. We know they have a talented roster, haven't looked the part, but have played better as of late. They went on that late run against Duke. It ended up falling short. I am glad for Jalen Withers, who had that lane violation, got a ton of hate on social media, which was just outrageous. It's not like he was trying to have a lane violation. I mean, he's obviously out there playing his hardest, but good for him that they got in and, kind of relieve some of that stress off of Jalen Withers. Good for him. North Carolina's favored by 3.5 in this game over San Diego State, and I think North Carolina favors 3.5 in this game. This is going to be one of my best bets. I'll kind of go through and lay out some of the best bets as we talk about the games. North Carolina minus 3.5 is going to be one of my best bets. They're just so much more talented than San Diego State. Now, you can make the argument San Diego State's probably better coached. They have a great defense. Brian Dutcher is outstanding, but this North Carolina team is just more talented than San Diego State. San Diego State hasn't been playing great as of late. I think North Carolina is going to beat up on them pretty good in this one. 9:10 True TV. Next up, let's move on to the second day of first four matchups. You got Mount St. Mary's and American. I don't have a lean on this game. I've really liked Mount St. Mary's. the past couple games. They've looked really good. American, they kind of dominated the Patriot League. American is favored by 2.5 in this one. This one's at 640 on True TV. Not really going to pick a side in this one. If I had to choose, I'd probably pick Mount St. Mary's, but just going to be fun to enjoy those two teams on TV. And then at 9-10, the other 11 versus 11 seed play-in game. 9-10, True TV. 11-seeded Xavier taking on 11-seeded Texas. Xavier favored by 2.5 in this one. I do have a lean in this game. I lean Texas. I think Texas is... This might be outrageous, but Texas, I believe, is a top 10, top 15 most talented team in the country. Just talent across the board. Now, I'm not saying they fit together awesomely. And they, quite frankly, do have Rodney Terry as their coach, who, hasn't performed incredibly well for the Texas brand, especially with how talented of a team this is. I lean Texas, though. I think just talent shows up in March Madness. In Texas, Trey Johnson, Arthur Kaluma, Tremont Mark, Jordan Pope, Caden Shedrick. That is an extremely talented roster. Xavier's been playing much better as of late. Xavier only has one quad one win. Texas has 7. I lean Texas in this game, especially as an underdog. I think that's pretty good value. 125. I think you can get them at plus 130 on a couple of betting markets. I do lean Texas in that game. All right, enough of the first 4. Let's dive into it region by region, starting in Atlanta. Auburn taking on Alabama State or SFU, the game we just talked about. So there's not a line out for this game. Auburn will be favored by about 30 points in this one, quite frankly. So don't really have a lean in this game. That game will take place Thursday at 2:50. Thursday at 12:15 on CBS. So what does this mean? This is the first game that will be on TV. Now the NCAA tournament in the NCAA committee is throwing us 8-9 games in the opening matchup. Remember, it used to be 7-10 with, remember the old Trey Young and taking on Rhode Island. And I think it was Dan Hurley was the coach then. Remember, it used to be those 7-10 games. They switched to the 8-9 games, which are definitely the hardest games to pick. 9 seeds have had their number with 8 seeds lately. I do lean Creighton in this game. Louisville is favored by 2.5. I said it on our last podcast. I'm going to lose sleep over this game. I think I actually slept good on this game because I started really breaking it down a little bit. Now, I'm not saying I know everything, but matchup wise, Creighton or Louisville, let's say Louisville gets to the rim and gets to the foul line like crazy. That's kind of what they're made of. They get to the rim. They're very analytically driven. They take threes. They get to the rim. They don't take a lot of mid-range shots. Creighton has a guy, Ryan Kalkbrenner, 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, 7'1" down low. He is an absolute just garbage disposal at the rim. He inhales everything, blocks everything. It's going to be hard for Louisville, and Louisville does not have a ton of size to get to the rim and score on Ryan Kalkbrenner. If they get Kalkbrenner in foul trouble, might be a different story. And they got Jemiah Neal on the perimeter, can really guard the ball. Creighton likes to shoot a lot of threes, so a little bit driven on if they knock down threes. Stephen Ashworth, Jackson McAndrew, they can knock down these threes, and I think Kalkbrenner is just going to go off in this one down low. The thing is Pat Kelsey, I have a feeling will just kind of let Ryan Kalkbrenner get his, and then just try and shut down the rest of the three-point line. So it's really going to be reliant on if Louisville makes threes. Jemiah Neal guarding the perimeter. I lean Creighton in this game just because Louisville's not going to be able to get to the rim in this one. They're 2.5-point underdogs. I think that's good value to get them at either plus 2.5 or even on the money line. It's always not fun to pick an underdog to win the first game in March Madness, but I do definitely lean Creighton in this game. Louisville shouldn't even be an 8 seed. They should be a 6 seed. They got to an 8 seed and unfortunately have to play Creighton, who's probably also should be an 8 seed. So bad draw for Louisville, in my opinion, in this one. Get to the rim. Tough to score on Ryan Kalkbrenner. Heavy lean on Creighton in that game. At Thursday at 10 o'clock on TBS, 5-seeded Michigan takes on 12-seeded UC San Diego. Michigan favored by 2.5 in this one. I don't have a lean on this game. Michigan has incredible size. Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden, UC San Diego does not have size. They're 6'6" to 6'8" in the front court. Trey Donaldson going to have to make threes for Michigan. Roddy Gale going to have to show up. UC San Diego can play with them. I really think they can hang with them. If I had to lean, I'd probably lean Michigan minus 2.5, but this is going to be a popular underdog pick. Michigan is just so tough against, they're going to be so tough to beat against mid-majors just because they have 2 7-footers. But UC San Diego they trap a lot and cause a lot of turnovers. Michigan turns the ball over a lot, but that's also, Danny Wolf, who's 7 foot, going against, other 6'8", 6'9", fast Big Ten players, and against UC San Diego might be a little tough. But if UC San Diego's making shots, anything can happen. This will be a popular upset pick, but I don't have a lean in the betting market. All right, next up, 4-seeded Texas A&M taking on 13-seeded Yale. This game's at 7:25 on TBS. Texas A&M's favored by 7.5 in this game. Yale is also going to be a popular pick to take down Texas A&M because Yale always performs in the tournament. I didn't think Yale was going to beat Auburn last year, as most didn't, but they did end up doing that. However, I do think this Yale team is not as strong as last year's team. Last year's team had Danny Wolf, who we just talked about. It will be a popular region where people pick UC San Diego versus Yale in a 12-13 matchup in the round of 32. I think Texas A&M's style, they're so fast. They offensive rebound the crap out of the ball. They shoot threes. They're kind of out of control, but they're so fast and athletic. I think that's just a little bit too much for this Yale team this year. 7.5 seems like a big number, but I think that's pretty fair. I don't have a heavy lean. I do think Texas A&M wins this game. At Friday at 4:05 on TNT, Ole Miss, the 6th seed out of the SEC, will play the winner of San Diego State and North Carolina. As I mentioned, I have North Carolina as a best bet, so let's talk about if North Carolina wins that game. I don't know what the spread would be in this game because we always see first 4 teams every single year. Actually, maybe was it last year or the year before where we didn't get one where a first 4 team won their opening round. Just about every year it happens, though. So say it's North Carolina versus Ole Miss. It'll probably be near a pick'em game. I don't have a lean in this game. In fact, I'm incredibly uncomfortable in this game. I'll probably lose sleep over if it's Ole Miss versus North Carolina. I will probably lose sleep in that one. If it's Ole Miss versus San Diego State, I will take Ole Miss. Chris Beard's an awesome coach. North Carolina is just talented. They can match up with anyone. If Ian Jackson and RJ Davis are making threes, they can play with anyone. In fact, their big men have even been playing pretty well. I do think Ole Miss is the better team. If Ole Miss is an underdog against the 11 seed, I always would recommend to bet if it like we're going to talk about it with Memphis and Colorado State. Memphis is the underdog. They're a 5 seed versus a 12 seed. I would always recommend betting the better seed if they're a heavy underdog and you can get them at good value. I think that's worth it. If Ole Miss is an underdog, I would recommend betting it, but I don't have a lean in this game. I think it's going to be a toss-up. Ole Miss, North Carolina. No disrespect to San Diego State. They got a shot. They're really defensively sound and they're really well coached. Maybe they can frustrate North Carolina. And North Carolina, from what we've seen, has seemed to be a little bit undisciplined this year. So we'll see if Elliot Cadeau can stay under control and be as good of a facilitator as he can be. So we'll see in this one. Don't have a lean in this one. I'll lose sleep over the winner of this game. On Friday at 1:30 on TNT, 3-seeded Iowa State taking on 14-seeded Lipscomb. Lipscomb, I thought, was going to be a 13 seed, but we got basically most of the favorites in each mid-major conference winning, so that kind of bumped them to a 14 seed. Iowa State's favored by 14.5 in this game. They are without Keyshawn Gilbert, their best player. He is out for the NCAA tournament. That's a huge blow to Iowa State, who's battled injuries all year long. 14.5 feels like a lot of points, but Lipscomb can really shoot the 3. Iowa State can really defend the 3. Iowa State's really good. I don't have a lean in this game. I think Iowa State, obviously wins, 14.5 point favorites. I'll never pick a 1, 2, or 3 seed to lose in the first round just because it's not feasible. If you're going to bet it, get good odds on it. Like last year, if you got great odds on Oakland over Kentucky, have at it. But in terms of bracketing, it's really not worth it. But 14.5, don't really have a lean in that game. On Friday at 7:25 on TBS, 7-seeded Marquette taking on 10-seeded New Mexico. Marquette favored by 4.5 in this one. Donovan Dent for New Mexico, Mountain West Player of the Year. Cam Jones for Marquette, potential All-American. Well, he'll be an All-American, just depends what team. He's awesome. Marquette's favored by 4.5 in this one. This will be a popular upset pick for people taking New Mexico. In fact, this region will probably be the most heavily picked, especially if North Carolina beats San Diego State. This will be a region where a lot of people have 10, 11, 12, 13 all advancing. I think Marquette just has a little bit more outside of Cam Jones than New Mexico has outside of Donovan Dent, which is why I would lean Marquette in this game. It's a little easier of a travel from Marquette to Cleveland. aside from New Mexico, traveling across the country, I don't usually tend to worry too much about that. I lean Marquette 4.5. Ooh, that might be a little bit too much. I'm not going to speculate too much on this game because, like I said, I'm not going to tell you how it goes. I'm just going matchup by matchup. But yeah, don't really have much of a lean in this one. I fully expect most people to bet New Mexico plus 4.5 in that one. On Friday at 10 o'clock on TBS, 2-seeded Michigan State takes on 15-seeded Bryant. Michigan State favored by 18.5. Doesn't seem like enough points to me. I think 18.5. This isn't in the best bets, what we'll talk about, but I think Michigan State can cover 18.5. Coming off a loss, they're going to show out. They play good against lower competition compared to them. So 18.5 is a lot of points, but I don't think it's enough, quite frankly. I think Michigan State wins and probably covers in that one. We'll come back to this region when we move into the round of 32, just going off of potential matchups. But next, let's move into to the next region. This is Duke's region, the East region. They will get to play in Raleigh. They will play the winner of American and Mount St. Mary's. Will probably be favored by 33.5. In that game, nothing crazy is going to happen. Cooper Flagg probably won't play. That might influence the line a little bit. Same with Malik Brown. So, he might play. I don't expect him to. Why would he? Get him healthy and get him for that second round matchup. In the second round, 12:15 on Friday on CBS. So this will be the opening matchup on Friday. So if you got a perfect bracket, you're going to be sweating this one out. However, I got a best bet in this game. 8-seeded Mississippi State taking on 9-seeded Baylor. Mississippi State favored by 1.5. I think Mississippi State's going to beat the brakes off of Baylor in this game. Baylor just doesn't match up physically, especially without Josh Ojanwuna. They're going to be playing Norchad Omier at the center, who's like 6'7". Mississippi State might be the most physical team in all of college basketball. Rob Wright, the point guard for Baylor, and Jeremy Roach also in there. Matching up with Josh Hubbard and Mississippi State's going to be a really fun matchup. However, I do think Mississippi State's going to just out physical and beat Baylor. I think they cover 1.5 and win that game fairly easily. That will be a best bet, Mississippi State minus 1.5. Next up, in Seattle. So we're going to Seattle in this one, which we will have Oregon in the 5-12 game and Arizona in the 4-13 game. So a good draw for these teams. Oregon takes on Liberty in the 5-12 matchup on True TV at 10:10 on Friday. Oregon's favored by 6.5 in this one. I don't have a lean in this game. I don't think Liberty is going to be a popular pick over Oregon. I think people will lean the other 12 over 5 seeds. Oregon proved a little vulnerable in the middle of the year, but they've been playing pretty lights out since then. I'm going to pick Oregon to win the game, but if Liberty were to win, I wouldn't be too incredibly surprised. Liberty, a great program, well coached, could easily get the job done, but I would lean Oregon just to win the game. Next up, on True TV, 7:35 on Friday. I got this graphic wrong. Akron is not favored by 14.5 over Arizona. Arizona is favored by 14.5 over Akron. 4-seeded Arizona, 13-seeded Akron. Arizona favored by 14.5. So just picture that's up one line. I kind of put this together a little bit too quickly in this scenario, but and I messed up the one below it too. BYU is actually favored by 2.5 over VCU. Disregard these. I know they're ugly. I'm sorry. I put this together quick. I just want to talk hoops. But anyways, Arizona, I don't think is going to have any problems with Akron. Akron has really good guard play. Arizona has really good guard defenders. Jaden Bradley, KJ Lewis, even Caleb Love can kind of defend. I think Arizona is going to kind of have their way with Akron. They're just bigger, more physical. Unfortunately for the Zips, pretty tough matchup here as the 13 seed. Next up, BYU favored by 2.5 over VCU. BYU, the 6 seed, VCU, the 11 seed. This game's at 4:05 on Thursday on TNT. So picture that 2.5 up one line. I'm sorry. BYU been playing as well as just about anyone in the country, as has VCU. VCU's been playing lights out lately. This is another game I will probably lose sleep over at night. I wish VCU didn't have to match up with one of the hottest teams in the country. And I wish one of the hottest teams in the country didn't have to match up with what might be the best mid-major in the country. I don't have a particular lean in this one. 2.5 points towards BYU. I guess I'd maybe lean, just since I think it's going to be a 50-50 game, maybe VCU plus 2.5. Not confident at all in that. I would recommend staying away from that. That game will be taking place in Denver, so a little bit of an advantage for BYU. 3-seeded Wisconsin taking on 14-seeded Montana on TNT 1:30 on Thursday. I got a best bet for this game. It is Montana plus 17.5. I do think Wisconsin wins. Like I said, I'll never take a 3-seed to lose to a 14-seed. However, I do think Big Ten teams are starting to figure out Wisconsin a little bit and kind of they've really been just John Tanji is Wisconsin's best player. He's not the quickest guy in the world. They've kind of learned how to shut him down a little bit, and Montana's well coached. They've been really hot coming into this tournament. They're playing really good right now. Like I said, I think Wisconsin's going to win fairly easily, maybe 10 points, but I do think Montana's going to hang with them. I think Montana's going to cover 17.5 in that game. That will be a best bet. Next up, speaking of a best bet, this will be my favorite bet that I have on Friday, True TV 3:15, 7-seeded St. Mary's taking on 10-seeded Vanderbilt. St. Mary's favored by 4.5 on this graphic. Since I made this graphic, it's actually down to 3.5. I don't know why. I think St. Mary's is going to cover 3.5 for sure in this game. This might be my favorite bet. This or Mississippi State. I'm pretty confident in this region with the bets. Obviously, I got 3 best bets in this one. I think St. Mary's is going to cover 3.5 against Vanderbilt. No disrespect to Vanderbilt. St. Mary's is just, I think they're out to prove something this year. That last year was kind of a fluke when they lost in the first round. Last year's team was a 5-seed. This year's team is a 7-seed for St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's is better this year than last year. Last year, they got a tough draw with Grand Canyon, who was a 12-seed and about, probably a 9-seed body. Vanderbilt, no disrespect, have kind of struggled a little bit lately. I just think St. Mary's is just better, quite frankly. I think St. Mary's covers 3.5 in that one. And then at 12:40 on Friday on True TV, another best bet. I love this East region. Alabama is favored by 22.5 over Robert Morris. I think Alabama is going to cover 22.5. They're coming off of a loss. This team is so fast. They play so fast. These mid-majors are not going to keep up with them. Just style of play, Alabama, I think is going to cover 22.5 points on a neutral court. I think they're going to end up winning by 25 plus in that one. I know it feels like a lot of points. It's just their style so fast. Robert Morris is not going to keep up. Great season for Robert Morris. Hope they can, but I think Alabama's going to beat up on them pretty good. All right, let's move on to the next region, the Midwest region, where we got 1-seeded Houston taking on 16-seeded SIUE. Houston favored by 29.5 points in that one. I don't have a particular lean. I usually stay away from the 1-16 matchups in the betting market. There's just so many points. And even the 2-15 matchups. 8-seeded Gonzaga taking on 9-seeded Georgia. Gonzaga is favored. These graphics are awful. I'm sorry. Gonzaga is favored by 6.5. I put this together way too quick. Double check your work. I'm sorry. Gonzaga favored by 6.5 in this matchup, though. Georgia, no disrespect. It's just a tough draw to match up against Gonzaga in the first round. Gonzaga's 9th at KenPom right now. This game's on Thursday at 4:35 on TBS. I'm going to pull up the KenPom line. I'm just curious to see what the KenPom line is only Gonzaga -6 in this one, but I do think Gonzaga is going to end up covering in that game, quite frankly, even being in Wichita. Yeah, I think Gonzaga is going to cover 6.5 in that game. Just too much for Georgia, in my opinion. Next up at 3:15 on Thursday on True TV, Clemson and McNeese. Clemson favored by 7.5. This will be a popular pick. A lot of people will pick McNeese to win this game. 7.5 points kind of feels like a lot. If I had to lean in the betting market, I'd probably lean McNeese plus 7.5, but I don't really have a particular lean in this one. I'm probably going to take Clemson to win the game, but this one's up for grabs. I'm not really going to dive into that too much. At 12:40 on Thursday on True TV, Purdue taking on High Point 4 versus 13 matchup. Purdue's favored by 8.5. I'm going to bet High Point at plus 300. They're plus 300 on the money line in a lot of markets. I think that's pretty good value. I think they got a good chance they can really score the ball. At plus 300, I think they have a pretty decent chance to upset Purdue. But like I said, I would never really recommend even 4-13 matchups. They're so hard to pick. It's there's probably going to be one, but it's so hard to know which one it's going to be. But I think High Point at plus 300, pretty decent value in that one. Next up at 9:45 on Friday on CBS, Illinois will play the winner of Texas and Xavier. As I mentioned, have a best bet of Texas on the money line against Xavier. So say it's Illinois versus Texas. I think Texas is going to beat Illinois. I think Illinois is very vulnerable, and Texas matches up with them talent-wise. In fact, I think Texas is more talented. Neither team real consistent this year. However, I think if Texas builds a little bit momentum and beats Xavier, I think they will beat Illinois. This will probably be an Illinois favored by 1.5, 2.5 situation. But Xavier could also put up a fight with Illinois in that one. Next up, 3-seeded Kentucky taking on 14-seeded Troy on CBS 7:10 on Friday. Kentucky favored by 10.5. That's not enough points. This is going to be a best bet for me. I think Kentucky is going to beat them by at least 15 in this game. Now, what I will say is I think Troy is, in terms of just who's the best team as a 14 seed, I think it's Troy. Just a tough matchup. Kentucky beats up on lower competition. They can really score the ball. Their offense is awesome. I think Kentucky's going to cover 10.5 in that game. That will be a best bet for me. On Thursday at 9:25 on TNT, UCLA, the 7 seed, takes on 10-seeded Utah State. This is going to be an ugly, ugly basketball game. Neither team is, or both teams play incredibly well defense. UCLA under Mick Cronin always does. Utah State under Jared Calhoun in the zone. It's going to be an ugly game. You might be looking in the 50s, maybe low 60s. I don't know what the over-under is. However, if it's 135, I'd probably take the under in this game. UCLA is favored by 4.5. That seems about right. I don't have a particular lean. I think UCLA is probably going to win the game. Utah State's looked a little rough as of late, but that's what I thought last year, and they won a game in the first round against TCU. So we'll see about that one, but I think I like UCLA to win the game, and probably the under, depending on what it is. Now the under might be like 120 because this is two prolific defenses. So we'll see in that one. On TNT 6:50 on Thursday, Tennessee taking on Wofford. Tennessee favored by 19.5 in this game. I don't think Tennessee is going to have any problems with Wofford. Their style of defense is just so awesome. That's going to be hard. However, Wofford can shoot it. But we'll see. 19.5 seems pretty fair to me. I think obviously Tennessee is going to win the game, but we'll see what happens going forward. Let's move on to the final region, the West region, where Florida is the number 1 seed. Florida will take on Norfolk State in the first round. Florida favored by 28.5 in that game. Someone mentioned on our podcast yesterday, which I know of Norfolk State, probably mostly because of Michael Vick, going to be the head football coach, and obviously their upset win a couple years ago against Missouri in March Madness. Actually, that was a while ago. Now that I think about it, I'm getting old. But Florida favored by 28.5. But someone said, continuing with the thought, that Norfolk State, they won the CBI last year and they returned just about everyone, which I really didn't know. I haven't really paid too much attention to MEAC hoops, so that was a good little nugget that they provided. Someone in the chat, I'm sorry, I forget what the name was. If you're listening again, comment below and I'll give you that credit. So that was a great little nugget because I really didn't know that. Unfortunately, they have to match up with Florida, who looks like the best team in the country right now. They're definitely the hottest team in the country. Them, Colorado State, probably the top 2. Throw BYU in that conversation. Although they did just lose to Houston pretty badly, but Florida playing as well as anyone. I expect them to beat Norfolk State. But hey, if you like that continuity for Norfolk State, maybe 28.5. Credit to my guy. Comment below. I'm sorry. I'm horrible with names in general, and a lot happened yesterday in the chat. So let me know. And then on Friday at 9:25 on TNT, 8-seeded UConn taking on 9-seeded Oklahoma. UConn favored by 4.5. Best bet, I think UConn covers 4.5 in this game. UConn just with the experience. Oklahoma has really struggled as of late. They did look good against Kentucky in the SEC tournament, but I think it's UConn, and it's just it's Dan Hurley just gets a win here. I don't think UConn's going to get past Florida, but I do think they win a game. I'll take UConn to cover 4.5 in that one. Friday, 2:00 on TBS, that game we mentioned earlier, 5-seeded Memphis taking on 12-seeded Colorado State. This one I didn't mess up the graphic. Colorado State is favored by 2.5. A 5-seed giving or receiving 2.5 points, I think is kind of outrageous. I think it should be a pick 'em. I already took Memphis. I think Memphis on the money line or plus 2.5 is a good bet. I'm not saying Colorado State's not going to win and could cover, but if you're a 5-seed and you've proven you can beat the top competition, I think it's worth the risk at like plus 120 on the money line. I like Memphis. At Friday at 4:35 on TBS, 4-seeded Maryland taking on 13-seeded Grand Canyon. Maryland favored by 9.5. It is now switched to 10.5. I like Grand Canyon plus 10.5. This is a good team that's getting healthy as of late, playing their best ball. I think Maryland wins, but I do believe Grand Canyon can definitely cover 10.5 points in that game. That's going to be a lot of fun. On Thursday at 7:35 on True TV, 6-seeded Missouri taking on 11-seeded Drake. Missouri favored by 5.5, 6.5, depending on what market you get it at. Drake, 30 wins on the season. However, I like Missouri a lot. I think Missouri's got one of the most talented rosters in the country. I don't have a particular lean in this game. Drake's obviously going to be a popular pick to win this game. I'm not going to bet this game. If you like Drake, plus 5.5, I would recommend instead of on the money line. Even if you think Drake's going to win, maybe sprinkle a little bit on the money line, but plus 5.5 would probably be my lean in that game. That feels like quite a few points. On Thursday at 10:10 on True TV, 3-seeded Texas Tech taking on 14-seeded UNC Wilmington. I like this UNC Wilmington team. I also like this Texas Tech team. Texas Tech favored by 15.5. I don't have a particular lean in this game. I obviously think Texas Tech will win. Yeah, I don't have a big lean. I'll just take Texas Tech to win that game. I think that number is pretty fair. On Thursday at 7:10 on CBS, 7-seeded Kansas and Bill Self take on John Calipari and 10-seeded Arkansas. Kansas favored by 4.5 in this game. Kansas preseason number one. They were preseason number one because people thought they have a ton of talent. You still do. You look at it. Really struggled against Arizona in the Big 12 tournament. They don't look like an elite team. Arkansas was preseason top 15, maybe somewhere around the 15 mark in the preseason. Have also, obviously started off really disappointing, have figured things out late. It's questionable whether Boogie Fland will be thrown into the lineup for this game. He's been out with that hand injury for a while. In terms of the matchup, this is a tough one. 4.5 seems pretty fair. But with the matchup, I'm a little worried about Hunter Dickinson out guarding the three. If he's on Zvonimir Visic, who can really step out as a 7-footer and knock down the three, I'm a little worried about Hunter Dickinson guarding the ball out there. So that might be a little bit of a matchup lean towards Arkansas. I don't have a particular lean in this game. I'm a little bit worried about it. I think 4.5 points for Kansas seems pretty fair. I'll probably take Kansas to win, but not real comfortably. On Thursday at 9:45 on CBS, St. John's, the 2-seed, takes on 15-seeded Omaha. St. John's favored by 18.5. I expect St. John's to win, probably by more than 18.5, but don't have a particular betting lean in that scenario. So we'll go through the round of 32 and some potential matchups, but let's talk about real quick the best bets that we had in that opening round. So starting on Tuesday, North Carolina minus 3.5 against San Diego State. That is a best bet. Wednesday, Texas money line against taking on Xavier. Thursday, Creighton money line against Louisville. Thursday, Montana plus 17.5 against Wisconsin. Thursday, Gonzaga minus 6.5 against Georgia. Friday, 12:15, Mississippi State 1.5 points against Baylor. Friday, 12:40, Alabama minus 22.5 against Wofford. Friday, Memphis plus 2.5 against Colorado State. Friday, St. Mary's minus 3.5 against Vanderbilt. And also on Friday, Grand Canyon plus 10.5 against Maryland. Friday, Kentucky minus 10.5 against Troy. And then finally, Friday at 9:25, UConn minus 4.5 against Oklahoma. Those are my best bets for the first couple days of March Madness. All right, so let's go back and we'll kind of break down the rest of these regions by region. Just looking at some potential matchups in the round of 32. So starting with, we'll have, obviously probably Auburn's going to get past Alabama State or SFU. Matching up against Louisville or Creighton, as I said, I like Creighton in that matchup, but if it's Louisville, wouldn't be completely shocked. But say it's Auburn versus Creighton, just for the sake of this for right now. Auburn against Louisville. Louisville's going to have a tough time against Auburn, in my opinion. Just not enough size for Louisville against an Auburn team that is just massive and just fast and can shoot. Just a little bit of too much of a talent edge there for Auburn. But against Creighton, it could get a little bit dicey just because Jonai Broome taking on Ryan Kalkbrenner. As we mentioned, Kalkbrenner, 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. He's just awesome. That could be an intriguing matchup. However, I do think Auburn just has too much for Creighton in that scenario. But if there's a 10-point spread in that game, Auburn to Creighton, I would maybe consider taking Creighton plus 10.5. However, if it's Louisville against Auburn, I think the spread will actually be a little lower, probably 6.5, 7.5, maybe 8.5. I would probably lean Auburn in that one. So moving down the region, you got the winner of Michigan and UC San Diego taking on the winner of Texas A&M and Yale. I think I like Texas. God, I've been hating on Texas A&M all year. I've just, I haven't really seen it with the eye test with this team because they do kind of just play ugly basketball, but they win. They do win games. I think I like Texas A&M getting to the Sweet 16 just because I like their matchup against, if UC San Diego beats Michigan, I could see UC San Diego beating Texas A&M just with style of play. If Michigan beats UC San Diego and Texas A&M beats Yale, I like Texas A&M to beat Michigan because Texas A&M forces so many turnovers. Michigan turns the ball over like crazy. Texas A&M offensive rebounds the crap out of the ball. Michigan can actually struggle on the glass at some points, even with Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf. So I like Texas A&M's matchup against Michigan. If that's the game that matches up against each other, to me, that's probably the safest pick. So I will probably take Texas A&M to the Sweet 16 but if UC San Diego beats Michigan, I could see UC San Diego beating Texas A&M. Moving down, the winner of Ole Miss and either San Diego State or North Carolina taking on Iowa State and Lipscomb. So probably Iowa State taking on, if I had to guess, I'd say Ole Miss or North Carolina. No disrespect to San Diego State. I'm sorry. I really like San Diego State. I like Brian Dutcher. Just the roster is, it's not all the way there for me. I do think the winner of Ole Miss and say North Carolina will beat Iowa State. Unfortunately, just Iowa State's hurt, and Iowa State is. I've been on Iowa State to go to the Elite Eight all year, barring any injuries, and without Keyshawn Gilbert, they've looked a little bit vulnerable as of late. They lost to BYU, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I think especially if it's North Carolina, just with that momentum going in, it would be really good guard play against really good guard play. It would be close. I would probably pick. I won't fill out the 11. I won't fill out the Ole Miss North Carolina game until the result of the North Carolina San Diego State game, unless it's obviously San Diego State. Let's just get wild here. If it's Ole Miss versus San Diego State, I'll take Ole Miss, and I will take Ole Miss to beat Iowa State. If it's Ole Miss versus North Carolina, I'll take North Carolina to beat Ole Miss and to beat Iowa State. If it's San Diego State who beats Ole Miss in the first round randomly, I will bet Iowa State in the second round. If that made any sense, hopefully you followed me any bit there. So this region's a little bit up for grabs as it usually is with the first four. So we'll see. Iowa State could get to the Sweet 16, no doubt. They're well coached, still a good team even without Keyshawn Gilbert. Just not as good a team without Keyshawn Gilbert. Anyone who has them to the Sweet 16. Probably the smart move. However, I will probably take. I like this Ole Miss team a little bit, and if North Carolina gets hot, I'd watch out for them. We'll see. Marquette and New Mexico taking on the winner of Michigan State and Bryant. Michigan State was a 7 seed a couple years ago and played 2-seeded Marquette. Now it could potentially be flipped. 7-seeded Marquette taking on 2-seeded Michigan State. New Mexico will be a popular pick over Marquette, as we mentioned. So say Marquette versus Michigan. Say it's New Mexico versus Michigan State. I would lean Michigan State in that game. If it's Marquette against Michigan State, Marquette's got a little bit of something where they kind of got a good little matchup here with Michigan State. Very similar teams. I would still definitely lean Michigan State. Michigan State seems kind of they've shown that they're kind of bulletproof throughout the season. I know they lost to Wisconsin, but they're still. I mean, they're a 2 seed. They have second most quad 1 wins in the country. I would lean Michigan State. However, I'd be a little bit less confident with playing Marquette instead of New Mexico, just matchup wise. But I do honestly believe that Michigan State, out of all the teams that are 1 or 2 seeds, got the best draw. I think just with Iowa State being hurt, basically, as unfortunate as that is, I think Michigan State got the best draw to potentially make the Elite Eight. So that's the round of 32. If you move on to the Sweet, just breaking down what might happen. Basically, let's just move on because there's no reason speculating that much when you get to the Sweet 16. Or let's just talk about if it ends up chalk and getting to the Elite Eight. Auburn versus Michigan State. That would be a lot of fun. That'll be the most popular pick in this region. I mean, obviously, speaking of just a general thought, this is going to be the hardest year ever to not pick all 1 and 2 seeds because the 1 and 2 seeds have been so dominant in the Elite Eight. I know last year we got a one or two of them, 1 versus 2 matchups. I know Tennessee and Purdue. I'm trying to think if there was another one. UConn played. I can't remember who UConn played. Oh no, they played Illinois, not Iowa State. So 1 versus 3. I think this year we're going to see at least 2 1 versus 2 seeds in the Elite Eight. I just think they're so much better than the other teams this year. especially with Iowa State being a little knocked up, as is Texas Tech as the other popular 3 seed to make a run. Kentucky, maybe could make some noise, especially with their we'll talk about them here in a second, but 1 versus 2 seed is going to be a pretty popular pick. So Auburn taking on Michigan State would be a tremendous matchup. Best team in the SEC in the regular season, best team in the Big Ten in the regular season, the top 2 conferences rated at KenPom. I think Auburn's going to go to the Final Four. I think they're going to kind of kick it into gear. Just from what we've seen all year, they are so talented. They have so much size. They have shooting. They have probably the best big man in the country down low. They got defense. Chad Baker-Mazara's got to kick it into gear. I think he's probably heard enough from the media that he will kick it into gear and he'll be an impact player coming down the stretch. I think Auburn's going to make the Final Four. Moving on now, going on with that, saying Auburn's going to make the Final Four. You might not want to listen to me because this might be a year where I might have to take all 4 1 seeds, which, as crazy as that sounds, I think we've only seen that once ever. It's just so hard to pick against one of these 1 seeds. And say you pick against Duke in this region, say you pick against Duke and they make the Final Four, you'll be thinking, yeah, okay, maybe I should have picked Houston. But then say Houston makes the Final Four instead of Duke. It's so hard to know which 1 seed could be on upset watch. However, this kind of leads into this conversation. I have Mississippi State beating Baylor and obviously Duke winning that first round. I think Mississippi State is a tough matchup against Duke. As we mentioned, Mississippi State is so physical. Cooper Flagg, his injury is if Cooper Flagg's out against Mississippi State, and even Malik Brown, who's a terrific defender, it might be tough for Duke against Mississippi State. This team is really, if Josh Hubbard's making shots and RJ Melendez isn't, we won't speculate too much on that. But if Mississippi State against Duke could be a really intriguing matchup. If it'll probably be, probably a 10-point spread if Cooper Flagg and Malik Brown are playing. I think I would lean Mississippi State plus the points in that game. Mississippi State just so physical, could be a tough matchup for Duke. However, if Baylor plays Duke, which I don't think Baylor's going to get past Mississippi State, I think Duke would just beat the brakes off them just because Duke is really physical as well. Mississippi State can kind of match Duke's physicality. Baylor cannot. Moving down, the winner of Oregon and Liberty taking on the winner of Arizona and Akron. I think it's going to definitely be Arizona. And then either Oregon or Liberty. I think Arizona is going to get past either one of these teams. But I say that every year with Arizona, and they never perform as well as you think. I think Arizona is going to get to the Sweet 16, and then I think they're going to get beat by probably Duke if Duke can get past Mississippi State. So we'll see. Yeah, that would be fun to see Caleb Love taking on Duke again. But yeah, I'm not 100% confident with Arizona making a deep run. It could easily be Oregon and then Oregon beating Arizona. A good little Pac-12 matchup there, old Pac-12 matchup. That would be fun, especially with it being played in Seattle. A little bit of an advantage for Oregon there. Moving down, the winner of BYU VCU, which I'm going to lose sleep over every single night, taking on probably Wisconsin. This is one I will also lose sleep over. I'm not sure who to take out of this Denver region, BYU, VCU, or Wisconsin. I could see it being any 3 of these teams. All 3 teams kind of similar, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm not even going to speculate too much on that. Just do what you want. Go with your gut, whoever you think. If you think VCU is the best mid-major, maybe take them. You think BYU can beat anyone, as they've kind of shown, take them. Wisconsin's been pretty bulletproof as well, so we'll see about them. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt, which I have a best bet is St. Mary's. So for this sake, say St. Mary's plays Alabama in the second round. This could be a weird little matchup for Alabama. Alabama likes to play incredibly fast. St. Mary's plays faster this year than they have done in the past. However, I expect Randy Bennett to really try and slow Alabama down in this game. I could see St. Mary's winning this game. As crazy as that sounds, St. Mary's against Alabama. These 2 teams were supposed to match up last year, which might have gave us a little bit of a better feel just for styles of play, because still similar styles of play, similar players from last year's teams. But St. Mary's did lose to Grand Canyon last year. So St. Mary's against Alabama would be incredibly intriguing in Cleveland. I might have to drive up for that game, only about an hour from Cleveland. That would be a terrific matchup. St. Mary's versus Alabama. Alabama would probably be, 5.5-point favorites. Alabama could win the game by, 15, 20. They're just their style of play is tough. But when you're going against a coach as good as Randy Bennett, watch out. That's an interesting matchup. So say it's chalk. Say we get to the 1 versus 2, because it's going to be hard to pick, not a 1 versus 2. Duke and Alabama would be as fun a matchup as we can get. If Cooper Flagg and and Malik Brown are healthy by that time, and that's a big if. I don't think I see Alabama getting past them, but anything can happen. Alabama can really shoot the ball. Just Duke is just so big and just so good that it would be really tough. But like I said, I think if there's a region where we're going to see craziness, it's this one. There could be a world, and every single year I make a bracket where it's just like everything that I could see, potentially maybe happening, I fill it out because like, hey, maybe the crazy stuff does happen and and it's so hard to pick. But there's a world where Duke plays Mississippi State and Mississippi State beats them. Then Oregon plays Arizona, and the winner of that game beats Mississippi State and gets to the Elite Eight. So you're looking at Oregon or Arizona State, or not Arizona State, Oregon or Arizona or Mississippi State in the Elite Eight. If, Cooper Flagg's not healthy, that's a huge thing against the physical Mississippi State team. And then if, VCU beats BYU and VCU beats Wisconsin, and then St. Mary's beats Bama, you got VCU versus St. Mary's, and Mississippi State versus Oregon or Arizona. This could be the most chaotic region, I think, just barring that Cooper Flagg injury. That's the big thing. Him and Malik Brown are obviously so important to Duke. So this is the region where I could see chaos really coming out of the blue. That top left region that we talked about with Auburn's going to be the popular 10, 11, 12, 13 seeds winning. This in the first round, those first round games. This is one where I could see we have a random winner of, VCU as an 11 seed makes the Final Four. Again, under Shaka Smart, this time Ryan Odom. Maybe something crazy like that, just all because nothing that Duke did wrong other than just unfortunately not staying healthy. So we'll see what happens there. So if you're filling out your bracket, this could be your region that gets busted. All right, moving on to the next one. Houston as the 1 seed goes 19-1 in the Big 12. We talked about this enough on the last podcast. 19-1 in the Big 12, run through the Big 12 tournament, and you have to match up with a top 10 KenPom team against Gonzaga in the second round, most likely. Shame on the committee for doing that, which is why I said on the last podcast, you have to put Gonzaga as a 6 seed because it's not fair to a 1 or 2 seed. The 1s and 2 seeds have been significantly better than the 3 seeds this year. It's not fair to Houston that they have to play Gonzaga, a top 10 team by the computers, in the second round. Shame on the committee. They should have been a 6 seed. So with that being said, I still do think Houston gets past Gonzaga in the second round. Just strictly because of the big men physicality. Ben Gregg and Braden Huff against JoJo Tugler and Jawan Roberts. And I mean, obviously Graham Ike's in there for Gonzaga and Javier Francis for Houston. It's just a complete physicality nightmare for Gonzaga. I don't see them getting past Houston. But it's still like they got great guard play as well. Like Caleb Battle could pop off for 30. Ryan Nembhard leads the country in assists. He could drop off 12 assists and score 15 points. Anything can happen. Gonzaga's proven that they can blow out teams. So if they show up like that against Houston, not fair to Houston, but I do still think that they get through that region. Now in the 5-12, 4-13 matchups, this is where we could see a variety of it. Clemson versus McNeese, Purdue versus High Point. You could see a 12 versus 13. You could see a 5 versus 4. You could see a 5 versus 13. You could see a 4 versus 12. This one's kind of up for grabs. I think it'll be Clemson. And like I said, I bet High Point, but if it's Purdue chalky wise, I think Clemson's going to get to the Sweet 16. I think Clemson's pretty rock solid, but would not be surprised if Purdue or even the High Point makes a Sweet 16 run. In terms of the second round in Milwaukee, like I said, I think Texas is going to beat Xavier, and I think Texas is going to beat Illinois. Taking on Kentucky, that's a 50-50 game. And in fact, I think if Kentucky beats Texas, this is just all speculation, by the way, saying Texas wins. Maybe it's Illinois. Maybe Illinois goes on a run and their talent shows. I'm not too confident in it, but say it's Texas against Kentucky. That's a close game. Like can Texas beat Kentucky earlier this year? It was in Texas, but anything can happen in that game. Setting up a probable matchup with Tennessee in the Sweet 16. Kentucky beat Tennessee twice this year. I think if Kentucky can get there and play Tennessee, they got a good chance to go to the Elite Eight. I think the safe pick is taking Tennessee over probably UCLA and taking Tennessee to the Elite Eight. I think that's your safest play, just because Kentucky has some roadblocks. Maybe playing Texas, maybe even Illinois might be a popular pick over them. But I think Tennessee's the safest pick. As mentioned, like I said, 1s and 2 seeds, they just are so much better. It's going to be so hard to to go against them. So if you're looking for maybe a 3 seed to make the Elite Eight, I might recommend Kentucky. I think Kentucky has a halfway decent draw. They just got to get past Texas, who's so talented, but they're not obviously incredibly coached. So if you're looking at chalk, Houston versus Tennessee, which is kind of what I'm hoping for, which I've been saying forever. I'm like, I hope Houston's in Tennessee's region, because these teams are like identical. They are as identical as you get. 2 top defenses in the country, can struggle to score the ball at points, but are weirdly highly rated in offensive efficiency at KenPom. They both slow the game down at some points. Tennessee, however, lately has kind of been pushing the tempo a little bit. Tennessee has Chaz Lanier. Houston has LJ Cryer. They both need to make shots to win a game against each other. If we're seeing Tennessee versus Houston in that Final Four, it would be a bloodbath. I hope we see that matchup. That would be a lot of fun. All right, now let's talk about the final region in the round of 32 and going on a little forward. I mentioned Florida probably taking on UConn in that second round. I don't think UConn has near enough this year, unfortunately, which is fine. They're due for, a little bit of a letdown year. I don't think they have enough to get past Florida. Florida is just so big and so good. However, UConn is a tremendous. They block more shots than anyone in the country. I still just don't think their guards are enough for Florida's guards. I think Florida would win that game pretty easily. Then you're looking at either Colorado State or Memphis taking on either Maryland or Grand Canyon. Another one that can be blown up. I would not be completely surprised if we saw a 12 versus 13. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 5 versus 13, a 4 versus 12, or even just chalk a 4 versus 5. This one's kind of up for grabs. In the second round, say it's Memphis and Maryland. I think Maryland has an edge over Memphis. Memphis kind of is one of those teams where I know they played a lot of close games, but they did win against us lesser competition throughout the year. No disrespect to Ole Miss. I'm kind of going to throw a shot just at Ole Miss. I think Memphis is more talented than Ole Miss, and they beat Ole Miss earlier in the year. However, Mississippi State is worse seeded than both these teams. And I think Mississippi State, I shouldn't say more talented. I should say more physical. I think Memphis is more physical than Ole Miss. However, most teams are not as physical as Mississippi State. Mississippi State had the edge in that game, and they beat Memphis pretty handily, pretty badly as well. Colorado State, not the most physical team in the country. A guy by the name of Nick Clifford is the name to know. However, if Memphis matches up with Maryland, I think Maryland's too physical for Memphis, and I think Maryland would move on. However, if Memphis or if Colorado State plays Maryland, anything could happen in that game. Colorado State can kind of match up with Maryland, in my opinion, and they're just riding off a high right now. They're on fire. And then if Grand Canyon were to get in, Grand Canyon and Memphis would be a tremendous matchup. Hopefully you're still with me here. Just had a little bit of technical difficulties there. The Wi-Fi has been a little bit crazy. But as I was saying, if Grand Canyon were to match up with Memphis, that would be just a good matchup. Probably about as close to 50-50 as I can imagine. All right, let's go down to the 6-11 game. Missouri taking on Drake. The winner of that will play probably Texas Tech. In my opinion, Drake could easily beat Missouri and get past Texas Tech, in my opinion. Missouri could also do the same. I think Missouri matches up talent-wise with Texas Tech. In fact, I think I'm going to take Missouri to beat Texas Tech and advance to the Sweet 16 in that scenario. Texas Tech's just not 100% healthy right now. Missouri, they've struggled as of late, but I think they're going to kind of kick it into gear. They've got a ton of talent, and I think they're going to make some noise. But Drake's won 30 games. They could just be an awesome basketball team for all we know. They could just be a power conference team that I thought they were going to be at worst a 10 seed. They got an 11 seed. Last year, they didn't have really a chance of an at-large bid, and they won the Missouri Valley Championship and got a 10 seed. They got an 11 seed this year, winning 30 games. That kind of tells me they probably weren't going to get in if they didn't win their conference, which is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So maybe they're just an awesome team, beats Missouri, beats Texas Tech, and then even puts up a good fight with probably St. John's we're looking at. So you're looking at probably St. John's in either Arkansas or Kansas. I don't think St. John's going to have any sort of problem with either one of those teams. I expect St. John's to move on. However, I do think Missouri, Drake, or Texas Tech can compete with St. John's, especially if Texas Tech is healthy. I think they can compete, but it's going to be hard to bet against Rick Pitino in March, and could definitely make a pretty good case there. So if you're looking at St. John's versus Florida, if it's complete chalk, which of course, once again, all just a speculation, It's going to be so hard to not pick Florida. It's going to be so hard to not pick all of these 1 seeds. St. John's will probably be a popular pick to make the Final Four, as they should be. They deserve to be. Just a little. That would be a tremendous matchup. St. John's versus Florida. St. John's has size. They got defense. Florida's got a little bit of everything. That would be just an awesome game. So that's it, region by region. Hopefully just got a little bit of a learning curve. Hopefully, you learn the betting lines a little bit, and just some potential matchups you might be seeing down the road. I'm sure it got a little bit confusing. It's hard to not really follow along with actually placing teams down. So just some potential matchups you might see. The last thing I want to do is let's just talk about this. We haven't talked about this in forever, just because I thought it was interesting. The new championship odds going into March Madness. This is via BetMGM Sportsbook. Florida and Duke. It's now Florida up at the top with Duke as your favorites to win the national championship at plus 350. Auburn's down to 425. Houston's at plus 625. And then there's a huge drop off to the 2 seeds, basically. Alabama at plus 1600, Tennessee 1800, Michigan State 2200, St. John's 2200. I do think we're going to see a 1 seed champion this year. We'll talk about them here in a second. Iowa State at plus 3000, as is Texas Tech. Kentucky's at plus 4,000, and then UConn, Arizona, Gonzaga, Wisconsin, and Maryland are all plus 5,000. The thing, I think we're going to see a 1 seed win it all this year. Now, no team is perfect, and I know we might be in our mind from last year just thinking, that UConn team was about as close to perfect as you can get. But Florida has looked about as hot as anyone in the country. Don't get me wrong. They lost in the first round last year, lack a little bit of, Final Four experience. We'll see what they can do there. Obviously, Duke is the most probably talented team in the country, but they have those injury problems. They've also shown that they are vulnerable at some points. There's nothing wrong with losing to Clemson at Clemson, but you don't want to drop one of those. And obviously in March Madness, Auburn, I have thought is the best team in the country all year. And then they've been struggling. Now, are they struggling just because, they clinched everything that you can clinch with 4 games left to play? Obviously they're still number 1 overall seed. Are they struggling because of that? Or are there real flaws with this team? Houston is awesome. Houston all the way through. They struggled a little bit in the non-conference when they played elite competition. They lost to Alabama. They lost to Auburn, teams that are probably a little bit more talented than Houston. So I'm a little worried if Houston has to match up with either Auburn, Duke, or Florida in the championship game. So there's a little bit to say about all of them, but as you can say with literally every single team, I do believe it's going to be a 1 seed. I think 64% of champions or something like that are 1 seed. So the odds are kind of in your favor. Florida, Duke, Auburn, Houston, pick your poison. Let me know in the comments who you got. Maybe you think it is going to be a 2 seed. St. John seems to have all the capabilities. Michigan State's been bulletproof. Alabama can score as well as anyone. Tennessee can defend as well as anyone. Maybe you think, Kentucky, Texas Tech, or Iowa State can win it. Let me know. Hopefully there weren't too many technical difficulties when we were talking about Memphis and Grand Canyon. Hopefully there wasn't too much of a break there. So apologies for that. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We're going to be going live a ton. We're going to be just posting videos a ton on we're going to start a trend again where we're posting the KenPom stats, 16 out of 18 teams that have top 25 offenses and defenses going into March Madness have made the Sweet 16 over the past 3 years. We're going to post a video on the teams that qualify over that. And then we're going to post a video of talking about the teams based on, just random KenPom and historical trends can win the NCAA championship. We did these videos prior. Hopefully you've seen those. We're just going to do it with updated numbers this time. So be sure to check that out. Hit that like and subscribe button, turn on the post notifications so you can join the chat live when we go live and you can discuss college hoops, and then follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Next time we talk will be Friday morning after, I believe Friday morning. I think that's what we got scheduled after the first round. So we will have first round updates. We'll talk about what happened. We'll see whose brackets are busted. Probably mine. We will see. Everyone enjoy ball, enjoy March Madness. We'll talk to you soon. See you later.